Hey guys, this is Bradley Benner, and this is Mindset Mastery Week 5. This week we're going to be talking about paradigms. First thing we're going to do is define what paradigm is, what it means, and then we're going to talk about how it applies to mindset and our beliefs and how we perceive and view the world and record all the information through sensory perception and implant it into our subconscious, right? So the first thing is I first want to preface this with this topic today that I'm going to be discussing is coming straight from Stephen Covey's book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I'm definitely going to give credit where credit is due, give attribution to Stephen Covey. It's a fantastic book. I'm actually listening to it on audio, and it's interesting because it's like on the audiobook version, if you go to Audible, you can get it there. Again, it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And it's like 11 and a half hours worth of audio. And I think I'd have to look at my phone, but I've got to be 3.5 or 4 hours in before he even gets to the 7 habits. He lays all this groundwork ahead of time, and he goes into great detail about what paradigms are and what our belief patterns are. And that's essentially what a paradigm is what is our belief pattern. We perceive the world. Now, I've talked about this in another one of the Mindset Mastery videos, but I can't assume that everybody's seen all of those videos, especially because I've done so many of them. So let me kind of recap that section. We don't observe anything as human beings. We perceive everything. What I mean by that is we are not impartial. Whenever we witness an event or experience anything in this life, okay, we filter it, we view it through our own lens of past experiences, emotions, belief patterns, our paradigm, essentially. That's what it is. Our paradigms determine how we interpret the event through our own lens, through our own paradigm, right? Which incorporates our belief patterns and our past experiences and our emotions and all of these things. And that's why you can take, for example, let's just say some sort of public event happened. I want to say a crime, but that would be negative, right? But if you ask witnesses, you'll often get different interpretations of what happened. It's the same event, but they're seeing it from different points of view, number one. But number two, they're applying their own belief pattern. They're looking at it through their own lens, through their own paradigm. Okay, so we don't ever just observe stuff. We always perceive it, and it really influences how we judge the event and how we determine what it meant to us and the feelings and emotions attached to that event and that kind of thing. And so to start with, like I said, I wanted to explain what a paradigm is. It's a belief pattern, and what we do is perceive everything through our own lens, okay? And when you understand that and you recognize that, it makes it easier to start to recognize the fact that we have the ability to change our perception of anything, okay? So, for example, this is an example that I used a couple of weeks ago, I believe, when I mentioned doing dishes. I do dishes manually by hand. I don't use a washing machine, a dishwasher, because I live by myself, except for my daughter when she comes every other weekend. And I very rarely entertain guests here at my house, so I don't need a dishwasher. I've got one, it's brand new. It still has the little tag, the energy efficiency tag, hanging off the top rack inside. It's funny, I've never used it, but I do have a brand new dishwasher. And for the longest time, for many years now, I've been living in this house for almost 6 years, or at least over 5 years, and I've never used the dishwasher. And so I used to get very irritated and annoyed because I'd wash dishes by hand over and over and over again. The same set of dishes, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, you know what I mean? Over and over and over again. And I would get so irritated at times because of the fact that I would have to do it. And, I'd cuss at the dishes and that kind of stuff, But what I've learned was by just a simple shift in my attitude, in my paradigm about this. Now, this is a very small potato type topic to explain what a paradigm is, but I think it's a fitting example, okay? But just by shifting my attitude from I have to do the dishes to I get to do the dishes has really changed my approach to how I handle washing dishes. Now, I know this might seem like a very trivial example, but now I approach it as this gives me about a 5-minute window, depending on how much I'm cooking. If I got a lot of dishes, obviously it takes me more, but typically it's just a handful of dishes. And it gives me a few moments, about 5 minutes or so, throughout the day that I can pause and just relax and I breathe now, and I kind of meditate while I'm doing dishes. I think about things, and I kind of play in my mind's eye, or the theater of the mind, so to speak, upcoming tasks that I have to do, or an experience or an event, or a conversation I have to have, or something like that. And it gives me time to kind of play through that in my head while I'm doing dishes. So it gives me a way to kind of what they call, I've used this term before too, shadow boxing, right? So it's like rehearsal. I can rehearse something else that I have to do, a task later that day. I can rehearse that task in my mind while I'm doing the dishes, right? So I can kind of play that mental movie in my mind while I'm doing the dishes. As well as sometimes it's just a moment of quiet. It's a moment of calm throughout the day. Sometimes, again, like I said, 2 or 3 times throughout the day, that I can take a few moments from my busy day where this incessant noise, this dialogue in my head that just never ends, it's a stream of consciousness that's just like a freaking expressway, you know what I mean, with just cars in both directions, there's thoughts in both directions constantly whizzing by. And this gives me the opportunity to just take a moment and breathe and just relax and think about just being calm and being in the moment, if that makes sense. So just a very simple shift in paradigm has really changed my approach into how I do dishes. And again, I know that's a very trivial example, but I just wanted to give one that I could think of right off the top of my head. So again, we don't really think about things as far as, we don't observe, we always perceive, we always view everything through our own lens of experience. And if we understand that and we recognize that, we can start to change how we see things, right? So that instead of, like, for example, looking always at the negative stuff, the negative side of things, start looking for the seed of opportunity in diversity, or adversity, excuse me, I said diversity, but adversity. So think about that. Like, when something bad happens, a lot of the times, now whoever's watching, I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, a lot of the times it's always like, oh man, like, why did this have to happen, and blah, 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 woe is me, that kind of crap. Throw myself a little pity party for a few moments, or sometimes up until recently for days or weeks and even months at a time, get upset about something that happened negative that didn't go your way, or the way that you planned, or the way that I planned. And so I get all upset and angry about it, kick some rocks and, say some choice words, and probably drink too many beers for a few days in a row or something like that to kind of numb the pain or whatever. But instead, now, because of this journey that I've been going on with self-improvement and development, and just kind of expanding my own way of handling and reacting to things, I realize now that there is almost in every case, when something bad happens, there is a seed of greatness. There's something that you can learn from that negative experience, and that it's very likely that you're experiencing that negative event so that you can learn something. It's the universe's way, it's God's way of teaching us lessons, right? And it's up to us to be able to take a step back from any negative situation and try to identify what that is. Try to find that silver lining in that rain cloud, so to speak. So that's an example of a paradigm shift, from going from always treating a negative event as something to complain and whine about, and looking to pass blame on somebody or something or some external circumstance. A paradigm shift would be to start internalizing that and trying to identify what you can learn from that experience, and how can you be a better person from this experience. And it could be anything, but I'm just talking about, our way of, if you understand that everything that your actions, the way that you react and it is a reaction, right? The way that we react to events. If we understand that it's us reacting to an event because we're seeing it through our lens, right? Through our own lens, through our own perception, our own paradigm, our own belief pattern. All of those are kind of interchangeable. They're synonymous with each other in this instance. But if we understand that, then we can start to change our lens, right? We can start to swap our lens out from the lens that we've always used. That, guys, your lens didn't just appear, your paradigm didn't just appear overnight. You've developed your paradigm over time through your belief patterns and your self-talk and your reactions and your past experiences. All these things come together to form your paradigm. And so if you understand that and you recognize that, then you can start to make a conscious effort to change it, right? To where you can swap your lens out for a different lens, a lens that is more suiting, more fitting, that can serve you instead of harm you, okay? And so it's a very, very powerful strategy or concept that this book, I'm not even done with it, by the way. I just got to the part where the first habit, no kidding. I spent, like I said, three and a half hours of audio so far, just Stephen Covey laying the groundwork for the 7 habits. And I just started the first habit. We're not going to get into that now, but I just really wanted to talk about paradigms today and kind of introduce this concept to you guys so that you can think about your own paradigms, your own belief patterns. And we've talked about limiting self-beliefs in a previous week for Mindset Mastery as well. And so if you haven't seen that yet, I would encourage you to check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Bradley Benner. And then just go look through it should be in the title of one of the Mindset Mastery videos, but it should be talking about belief patterns or limiting self-beliefs and that kind of stuff. And I would encourage you to go back and look at that because I dove much deeper into that during that video. So I do have some notes here. I'm trying to get away from carrying a note while I'm doing these videos, guys, but I didn't have as much time to prepare for today's video as I wanted to. So I didn't have a chance to kind of memorize all these bullet points. So I just wanted to talk about a couple things. For example, here's another good example of our paradigms. And, you know, we project our intentions on other people's behavior. What do I mean by that? Here's an example. How many times I can speak for me, and I can only assume that many of you have probably experienced something similar, where somebody makes an offhand comment to you. It could be like you're asking somebody's opinion about something that you did or something that you created. Me being an online entrepreneur, you know, I'm always building, you know, digital assets and marketing campaigns and that kind of stuff. And so, for example, if I were to ask a colleague or somebody that I respected to give me their opinion about a campaign or a project that I built, and they come back with a short statement that was really neither positive nor negative. It was kind of just a neutral statement, but I take it as like, what did he mean by that? Or what did he or she mean by that? What did they mean by that? Well, they must not like it. Well, I wonder what could be wrong. Well, I did the best that I could on here, and I spent all this time over here on that. I wonder if it could be that, could it be that? Like, next thing you know, you're in this downward spiral of freaking out and stressing out, worrying about this little short statement that somebody made. Maybe they were in a hurry. Maybe they had good intentions, but they for whatever reason, they didn't take the time to type it out. Maybe it's just their personality. You might know that if you know the person well enough that is their personality. But my point is that we often, and I know I've done this many, many times, but I start freaking out and stressing out and worrying, which worry is nothing but negative imagination. Right? Think about that. When you worry about stuff, you're imagining the worst case scenario instead of imagining the best case scenario. And that's that whole optimism, pessimism thing, right? That's your paradigm again. And that's what I've been talking about for all these weeks now, is about changing our thought patterns, our belief patterns, so that instead of always defaulting to the negative, we start defaulting. And it's going to take work and consistent effort, guys. You don't develop a paradigm overnight. I said that before, but it's the truth. You develop a paradigm over time, right? And so if you're constantly defaulting to the negative, always thinking the worst, then you're going to always assume the worst, right? And so you worry, which is negative imagination. You imagine the worst, or things that are not, non-positive, right? So, but instead you can shift. You can shift your paradigm. You can change your lens. It doesn't, and again, you're not going to change it overnight. It's going to take practice and consistent effort. You have to develop it over time. But over time, you can rewire your neural pathways to where you no longer default to negative, you default to positive. So back to the example of, asking somebody's opinion about a campaign or a project that I built out, and they come back with a short answer that was, again, I don't know what their intentions were, but I project my intention onto their reply or their response. Does that make sense? So if my intention is, if I'm worried that they don't like it and all this other thing, what is that telling me? That's telling me, because to them, they gave and again, this is just an example, but if they gave me just a very, very short, one word or a few words or even a sentence answer about what they thought about my project that I asked their opinion on, they probably gave me that answer and they moved on to the next thought, the next thing in their life, whatever task or event or whatever that they're moved on to. They moved on to it and never gave it another moment's thought. It's likely that they never gave it another thought. Yet here I am on the other end of it, spending minutes or hours literally worried about it, like contemplating what they meant. What was the meaning behind that short reply that they gave me? And thinking all these different things. Well, those are my own feelings, my own fears and self-doubts that I'm projecting into the reply that they gave me. And think about it, that the reply that they gave me could have very well been well-intentioned. It could have been like they were saying something good, but I didn't interpret or perceive what they said as positive or encouraging. I perceived it as negative or hurtful or a criticism, right? And so again, that would be my own projection of my own self-doubts, my own fears, my own worries. And so that's just an example, is that we often project our intentions onto other people's behaviors. And so while we're freaking out and spending all this amount of time worrying about something that somebody else said, they've moved on. They never even gave it a second thought, another moment of contemplation, and here we are freaking out about it. How many times have people done that to you? You know what I mean? Or how many times have you done that to yourself? It's not that people have done it to you. People have only replied or said something or sent you a text or an email or said something in passing on the phone or in person or whatever, and next thing you know, you're freaking out and you spend all this time worrying about it. That's not what they did to you. That's what you did to you. You see what I'm saying? And that's the kind of stuff that fortunately, I'm able to start recognizing this kind of thing, so that even now it still occurs. I'm not going to say it doesn't occur. It absolutely still occurs, but I'm very quickly able to recognize that that's what's going on. And I can say, whoa, wait a minute. Is that thought? Is that my perception? Is that based in reality? Or is that based on my own lens? Is that based on my own paradigm? And it's, the very same paradigms that I'm trying to change or to replace with new ones. And so over the last several months that I've been on this journey now of, self-development, self-improvement, I've been able to start recognizing these moments in my own life where I'm overreacting to things. And it's likely, almost assuredly, my fault, not anybody else's fault, right? Which kind of leads me to the next thing. Change comes from within, guys. Change doesn't come from external circumstances or situations or external stimuli, right? Change comes from within, guys. You can't expect anybody else. I'm going to use weight loss again here. I know I probably do this to death, but Brad, the weight loss stuff's been done to death. I understand that, but again, it's a really good example. Weight loss, you can go out and say that you want to lose a bunch of weight, and you can go do all the things externally that it requires to lose weight, or that's required to lose weight, such as, eating better, moving more, so becoming more active, making healthier choices as far as what you eat and your activities and all that kind of stuff. You can go through all the motions to change your external circumstances. But unless you truly want it in your own mind, and unless you believe that you're capable of making the change and sticking with it and becoming that lean and fit person, then you're never fully going to realize all the change that could have occurred had you truly believed it and truly desired it, okay? And so again, that change comes from within. If you don't truly want it and you don't believe that it can happen, then you may still force yourself through sheer willpower to go through all those external motions, right? Which is doing all the things that I just listed, eating well and making better food choices and being more active and, regular exercise and that kind of stuff. Yet you don't have the belief to really stick it through. At some point, your willpower will falter, right? It will wane, and you will end up going back and falling back into old habits because you never shifted your paradigm. You never changed your paradigm. You still have the same lens, right? You're still viewing the whole event through the same lens. And all you're trying to do at that point is just change your external circumstances, right? So as far as personal development, let me use this example. You can go through these videos that I'm doing on Mindset Mastery. You can read some of the books or listen. I very rarely read anymore just because of lack of time, but I do listen to audiobooks all the damn time. All the time I'm listening to audiobooks or audio programs. But you can read books, you can listen to audio programs, you can watch these videos, you can follow along, you can actually go through the motions and start changing how you behave. But unless you truly believe it, which again goes back to paradigms, then you're just trying to manipulate what others see about you and how other people feel about you. You have to change your belief in yourself first, right? Change comes from within. It does not come from external situations or circumstances. So if all you do is all the things that I talk about in these videos, or through your own research and your own study, you start applying the principles and the methods, but you don't truly believe them, that they work, and you don't have faith. And again, it goes back to desire, expectation, and imagination. We've talked about that before. You have to have the desire, and you have to expect that it's going to work for you, which is the belief, right? You have to believe that it's going to work for you, because if you don't, and you just go through the motions, then all you're trying to do is make everybody else see a change in you, right? So you're looking for validation from other people, but you need to validate it to yourself first, which means you have to change your paradigm. You have to believe, you have to want it, you have to believe it, and expect that you're able to do it, right? And then that's the change from within. And once you make that paradigm shift inside your own body, your own mind, then going through the motions, the external motions, which is doing a lot of these exercises and meditation practices and everything, will help to solidify or concrete that paradigm. And it will be a lasting change because it's something that you truly desired. And again, it came from within. Whenever you try to do some sort of change externally for that reason alone, just to make other people happy, then it all too often you end up falling back into your old belief pattern, because you never truly changed your lens. You're still perceiving everything in the way people react, and your entire view of everything is still jaded, right? It's because you're still seeing it through that dirty lens, so to speak, of your old paradigm, your old limiting belief pattern, okay? So, and to take that another step further, it's like happiness. Happiness is internal, guys. How many of us, now I've done this many, many times throughout my life, where I say, if only I blank, if only I had this, if only I could do that, if only blank, then I would be happy, right? Come on, guys, be honest. How many times have you said, if only I had that job that I wanted, if only I could make $5,000 a month, I'd be happy. If only I could get that car, I'd be happy. If only that other person would go out with me, I'd be happy. I wouldn't need anything else, right? If only, if only, if only. And it's always, that's seeking happiness through an external source. Happiness doesn't come from external sources, guys. That explains why so many people that are filthy, stinking rich lead miserable miserable, unhappy lives, right? Because you have to be happy. Happiness is something from within. You have to be happy in your present moment, who you are. You have to be happy with who you are and your current circumstance. Find happiness in anything. You can find happiness in almost any circumstance. Now I say that, you know, I'm not locked up in prison and, you know, all that kind of stuff, but it's still, what I'm saying is happiness is still an internal thing. Okay, you can choose to be content with your current situation regardless of what it is, right? You can try to find the positivity, the silver lining, as I mentioned earlier, in whatever situation you have. So for example, let's say that you are hurting for money and you want more money. Okay, well, granted, things might not be easy when you're hurting for money, but if you have the desire to make more money and you have the willpower and the belief, so the desire, the expectation, and the imagination, if you desire to make more money and you expect that you can make more money based upon action that you have to take action, right? And then you start to imagine what it would be like if you were to have that money and how it would feel, and you start taking action on that expectation and the imagined experience of having that money, then you can start to find happiness knowing that it's inevitable. You are inevitably going to get that money that you need. Let's say your goal was $5,000 a month, which, by the way, I think that's a very low goal. To some of you, it might seem like a high goal to start with, but trust me, you know, when you start to develop your goals and start using your imagination, you should aim high, because there's no reason to set the bar low. Set the bar high, right? Because let's put it this way, Grant Cardone has this book called The 10X Rule. Fabulous book. I've listened to it on audio probably about 5 times. It's probably been 2 years since I've listened to it though, and I used to listen to it at least twice per year. So I need to get that out and listen to it again. But Grant Cardone always talks about the 10X rule. 10X everything that you do. And I'm looking at my time again, guys, because I got a webinar I'm hosting in about 30 minutes. So anyways, Grant Cardone, he talks about the 10X rule. So let's say that you wanted set a goal of $5,000 a month is what you would like to start earning, or in addition to whatever you currently earn. You want $5,000 more per month. Well, instead of aiming for 5,000, aim for 50K a month, 50,000 a month. Because here's the thing, if you only make it 30% of the way to that $50,000 a month goal, so let's say you set that goal up real high and you start taking massive action, because the amount of action you take differs between trying to reach a $5,000 a month goal or a $50,000 a month goal. Would you agree? You know what I mean? So the amount of action that you're going to take to try to hit that $50,000 goal is it's 10x what you would do for the $5,000 a month goal, right? You're 10 timing, multiplying the effort and action by 10 times, by a magnitude of 10. So if you aim for $5,000 a month and you fall short of that goal, then you haven't hit your goal. And then what do we do? We beat ourselves up, right? Oh, see, I knew I couldn't do it. I'm a failure, and blah, 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 and all that kind of crap. Bullshit. You made some progress, man. Take that and run with it. You know, be proud of yourself that you made some progress. And so you didn't hit it by the certain date, so extend the date. And reflect. Why didn't you hit that goal? What were some of the roadblocks? What were some of the obstacles that you could overcome? What are the lessons that you can learn? Once again, a paradigm of, instead of trying to lay blame and start kicking yourself, and I've said this before, but forming your failures and defeat into a club and beating your self-esteem down, you know, into submission over your, you know, falling short of hitting your goal. Instead of doing that, you say, okay, let me analyze this. What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Let's find those things that did work well. How can I increase those? And so again, it's about shifting your paradigm. But if you set your goal to 50K a month, so you 10x that goal, and then let's say that you're obviously you're going to have to 10x your effort and your action, but let's say that you fall far short and you only hit 30% of the goal. Well, didn't you just increase your income by 15K a month, right? So if your original goal was 5,000, but you set it for 50 and you only hit 30% of the way, oh shit, man, now you're a failure. right? Oh man, you once again, I knew you couldn't do it, dummy. You couldn't do it. You set it for 50 and you're only making 15,000 more. Well, that's a damn good problem to have, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So my point is, having happiness comes from within, and it's an internal thing. And so if we go back to that example, saying you may be struggling for money right now, and that's not an easy thing to deal with. I get that, guys. I'm not trying to trivialize or minimize the effect of not having money or needing money. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is, if you have the desire, you have an expectation that you can do it, and you take action, which is required. You start imagining that you can do it, and what it will feel like when it's done. Then you can start to gain happiness and contentment with the process. I've said this before too. Don't focus on the destination, which is whatever goal you set. Focus on the process, and trust and have faith. Believe, expect that the process will get you to the destination. So if you always focus on the destination, it's so easy to just to find obstacles, to let obstacles and setbacks and things kind of distract you, because you think, I've got to be here. I've got to get here to whatever that point may be, whatever that goal may be. So let's say $5,000 a month. I got to get to $5,000 a month, and I have to get there within the next 6 months. And let's say 4 months goes by and you're only at $1,500 a month, and then another month goes by, and you're always focused on trying to hit that deadline and hit that certain number, and you freak out about it, and you start worrying about, oh shit, I'm not going to make it, and damn it, and what's that do? That starts to discourage you, and you start to find excuses as to why you're not going to continue pushing as hard as you had been, because you're not going to make the deadline anyway, so what's the point? All this other kind of crap. Poor paradigm again, right? But if you believe that, if instead you focus on the process, and you say, okay, I've got this goal, I want to make 5,000 in the next 6 months. Well, let's make it 50,000 in the next 6 months. What do I have to do to get to that point? What would my day look like? What would a day look like for somebody that's making $50,000 a month? Like, what kinds of activities and tasks would somebody making $50,000 a month do? And you start to focus on the process and not the destination, because then you start to develop the process and refine it, become more efficient with your time, become more effective with your time. And that's where you start to see massive results, because I guarantee you won't be checking your email 50 times a day like you probably do now. And I'm projecting my own beliefs onto you right now. Does it make sense? Because that's a problem that I have. I check my email too many damn times throughout the day. Or Facebook. Fortunately, I don't have a Facebook problem. I don't particularly like Facebook very much. So that's one thing I don't have much of a problem with. But I do check my email too much. So again, that somebody that's making $50,000 a month isn't going to be checking their email or spending an hour a day on Facebook replying to stupid posts that mean absolutely nothing. But it's, again, I as you can tell, I've got a little bit of an issue with Facebook. I think it's just a huge time suck. I think it's great for socializing, but people use it. People spend too much time on it during what should be productive hours, in my opinion. And that's why I just stay the hell off of Facebook. I'm very rarely on Facebook. And when I am on there, I try to do stuff specifically for business, except for occasionally post a few personal things, but not very often. So again, my point with the happiness is internal is that you can start to find happiness with the process, right? If you trust in the process that you know can get you to your destination, then you start to find excitement and enthusiasm just for your day-to-day grind, right? Because you say, man, for certain, and you believe, you expect that you're going to eventually hit your destination because you're going through the proper motions every day, right? And so that in itself can create happiness. And that's what I mean by happiness is internal. It's not, you can't, once you get that $5,000 a month, is that going to make you happy? No, it's not. It's never going to be enough. If you're always assigning happiness to an outside or external source, then once you've attained that goal, which should provide you with happiness, very quickly, you might be content for a short period of time, but very quickly, that feeling of emptiness, that hole is going to reappear, right, in your soul. That's going to just want more. It's going to want something else because you're looking for an outside source to provide you with happiness. You need to be content with your own life, right? And happiness is an internal thing. It's not an external thing, okay? Next, something else about paradigm shifts and, you know, finding your own happiness is that you care less about what others think about your actions and begin caring about what they think about themselves. This I can speak from 100% experience on my part. You know, I teach. I'm teaching right now, right? I teach digital marketing and now mindset stuff. I'm doing a lot of that right now, and this is something I'm going to continue to do as I really enjoy this. I'm very, very passionate about it, if you can't tell. But as a teacher and being in front of people, teaching on webinars and, you know, audiences and things like that, I have oftentimes retroactively gone back and like analyzed a presentation that I've given or a lesson that I've presented to students or to an audience or whatever, and been very critical of how others may have perceived what I thought, what I taught, or what I said. This very series, guys, let me explain something here. I want to be 100% transparent with you guys and honest. The very first week of the Mindset Mastery series, I called it Mindset Mondays then, I produced that series, that first week of videos. It was like I think it was 5 videos that first week. And I actually did it on Monday. I spent 7 hours. I spent like 3 hours preparing notes, 2 hours recording the videos, and then I spent about 2 hours editing the videos, and I wasn't happy with any of them. So I ended up deleting everything, and then on Tuesday I went back and re-recorded everything again, and I was much happier with the second batch. But I went ahead and published them, and after publishing them, it was about 6 hours later. I put them live on my YouTube channel, you know, public on the YouTube channel. And then I also posted the playlist in a couple of the groups that I manage or host through, you know, Facebook and Google Plus and stuff like that. And I had a panic attack that night. I'm not kidding. And I don't even get panic attacks, guys, ever. But that night I did. Like, I mean, I was sitting on the couch. I had the TV on, and I was kind of like just thinking about, you know, the work that I had put in to put these videos out. And all of a sudden I got this panic attack about, oh my God, what are people going to think? Like, people are going to think I'm an idiot, you know, and all these my limiting self-belief, I started to project my own fears and self-doubts into the ether about this Mindset Mastery series that I started, and I was totally sweating it. Like, I was really debating, and I had a serious internal debate going on whether I should go delete them or at least unlist them or turn them private so that nobody could see them, because I was worried about what other people thought. And that's 100% the truth, guys. That's what it comes down to, is I was worried about what other people thought. But what I've started to learn from that experience, and I got over it that night, thank God. It's funny because I was in full-on panic mode for about, I don't know, about maybe 10 minutes, or at least it felt like 10 minutes. It was probably less, but you know how when you're in those kind of like panicky or in these really anxious situations, when anxiety is overwhelming, it can sometimes feel like time slows down. So anyways, I assume it was about 10 minutes, but I was freaking out. And for about 10 minutes there, I was like full on panic mode. And then some of the training kicked in, some of the study that, you know, the stuff that I've been studying kicked in, and I realized, wait a minute, this is me projecting my own fears and self-doubts. Which is dumb. Like, and that in itself, the way that I caught myself was actually kind of not the right way to catch yourself, right? But it's paradigm, old belief patterns. You have to rewire your self-talk. You have to reprogram your brain and your self-talk. And so when I caught myself freaking out about that first week of the mindset, it was called Mindset Mondays then, but the Mindset Mastery series, I was like, wait a minute. This is me projecting my own fears and self-doubts. Don't be stupid. Stop it, you dummy. You know, which again, that's not the way you should talk to yourself. You shouldn't correct or reprimand yourself that way. One of the ways that Maxwell Maltz from Dr. Maxwell Maltz from Psycho-Cybernetics, he talks about saying cancel or reset, right? So like if you say something negative of yourself, then immediately follow up with cancel or reset. And then tell yourself, you're not an idiot. You just made a mistake. It's okay to make mistakes. You learn from it and move on. You know, it's a quick way to kind of like start to catch yourself and to reprogram the habit of criticizing yourself regularly with a more constructive or productive way of, correcting yourself, so to speak. Okay. So I was really worried about what other people were thinking about me. And I'm not going to lie, still to this day when I do these videos, guys, and I publish them, because I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone here. When I talk about marketing online, I'm very confident about it because I've been doing it for so long and it's kind of second nature. And a lot of people look to me and my partners and my various companies as experts in marketing. But this is all stuff that's new to me. Like, I've never taught on this before, and I'm only a few months into this myself, but I'm applying it and I'm seeing the results. So the same as when I first started teaching marketing, I'm a bit reserved and I get worried about what other people think, but that's me only projecting my own self-doubts, okay? So I just want you to understand that as you start to shift your paradigms, and you'll start to worry less about what other people think. Because who cares what other people think? Think about it, guys. Your happiness is dependent on you, not what other people think of you, right? And so if you're content with yourself and your self-image, and you have high self-esteem, and you're happy to be in your own skin, then why would you care what anybody else thinks about you? Don't second guess, obviously if you don't just say anything and do anything that you want to do and just expect everybody to be okay with it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you are confident in who you are and you're happy with yourself, then really other people's opinions shouldn't really matter to you. You might seek validation out of some people, like people that you care about or that are close to you. There's no doubt we all do that. We look for validation and encouragement. But you shouldn't allow other people's opinions to affect you, either negatively or positively, really that matter at all, because it's up to you, right? And so, again, care less about what others think about your actions and begin caring about what they think about themselves. That's the thing. Remember, just the same as when we have our paradigms messed up and we stress out and worry about things that, like what ifs and all these could-haves and all these things that are, hypothetical, that we worry about, which is negative imagination, right? Instead of going through all of that kind of stuff, or when we do all of that kind of stuff, it's because we're projecting our own fears and self-doubts onto others or onto events. Well, that's the same thing that people are doing when they criticize us. Do you get that? Think about that, guys. When other people criticize you, it's them projecting their own fears and self-doubts, right? When people say negative things about other people, it's because deep down inside they feel that way about themselves. And so they point that out and project that on other people. I mean, guys, if you sit and think about it, it's the absolute truth. I used to be very, very critical just a few months ago of others in so many different ways, and I was very quick to point it out whenever I was critical. And now I've really realized how much of an asshole I have been for all that time. No kidding. And I'm so glad that one of the things that I've gotten out of all this is to learn how to, don't judge people. When you start judging other people, it's really you judging yourself. Does that make sense? And I was judging myself because I had low self-esteem. And my confidence levels were low in most situations. I was quick to judge other people on, and really now, because I'm seeing with a lot more clarity, I'm seeing now that was me projecting my low self-esteem and my low opinion of myself onto others, okay? And so I stopped that, and now I make a conscious effort to, at any time that I even catch myself internally judging somebody else, cancel. I just mentioned Dr. Maxwell Maltz, reset or cancel. I said cancel, and I tell myself, don't judge, you got to look and try to empathize with others. And that's what the last part of this note is. Begin caring about what they think about themselves, their lens. What is their paradigm? When somebody else is criticizing you or neglecting, or being mean or saying things that are hurtful or hateful, think about, I know it's very hard. I'm not saying go be their buddy and give them a hug. I'm not one of those tree huggers like kumbaya, let's all burn some incense and, dance around holding hands and crap like that. I'm not one of those guys either, okay? But what I'm saying is when somebody else is criticizing you or throwing, saying hateful things or hurtful things or whatever, trying to intentionally hurt feelings, you got to think about what's their paradigm. Try to empathize. What's going on in their life that's causing them to be that way, right? And I'm not saying that you can solve it or that you should even try. All I'm saying is you start to let that kind of stuff roll off your back, because you start to realize that it's their own projections. Their own lives are screwed up somehow, some way, or oftentimes in many ways. And that's why they're so critical, right? That's why they're judging you or judging others, because they are finding they have deep-rooted faults of their own, and then they're projecting that on others. Okay, so I've only got a couple minutes left, so I want to go through a couple more. Criticisms are often just projections. I just talked about that. So stop comparing yourself to others and begin competing with yourself. That's another great one. Stop comparing yourself to others. So for example, if you have role models, and say like in business, and oh man, I see that they're making $20,000 a month doing the exact same thing online that I want to do. And you start comparing yourself, why can't I get to that level? I'm working just as hard as they are, and blah, blah, blah. Well, they must have something special, or they must be lucky, or they must have had money going in, or they must have had known people that I don't know, and all that. Don't do that, guys, because when you start comparing yourself to others, you're never good enough, right? You're always going to find somebody that's better, or has more, or is faster, or smarter, or has more money, or is better looking, or has more stuff, whatever. More friends, whatever. Don't worry about that. What you should be doing is competing with yourself. When I stopped comparing myself with others, that whole jealousy thing just dissolves, goes away. You stop being jealous of other people's stuff and start competing with yourself. Now that's something I actually picked up from CrossFit, because in CrossFit we do, we work out. I work out a lot with my CrossFit coach one-on-one. But we also have group classes, and so when I go attend the group classes, or even when I do it one-on-one, we all keep track of our times. So I might do a one-on-one session, and then later on the group comes in and does the same workout, and we all keep track of our times and things like that. Most workouts are timed in CrossFit, so it's like you're trying to compete for time, or compete for number of reps within a certain amount of time, or something like that. And so when I first started doing CrossFit, I would always look at other people's and compare my times or my results with other people's results. But what you learn through that process is that you don't compare with others, you don't compete with others, you compete with yourself. All you try to do is always try to beat your last best time, if that makes sense. So you should encourage other people to do well, not be mad because they're doing well, right? Compete with yourself, not with others. Stop, be happy for other people's success. Be happy for the things that they have. Be happy for their friends, their network of friends, the money that they make. And then, again, internalize that happiness and be happy for them. And man, good for them. You know what? I'm going to get there too. And I'm going to get there because I know what I did yesterday, I'm going to do better today. And what I do today, I'm going to do better tomorrow. Okay? So there's one last thing I'm going to close with this. This is a direct quote from Stephen Covey in this book. And he says, between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. Let's see, between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. And in these choices lie our growth and happiness. So in other words, whenever and this, again, just to follow up, close out today's session on paradigms, between stimulus and response. So when something happens, when we experience something, an event, whatever, and how we respond to the event, there's one step in between. That's called choice. That's our choice on how we're going to react and how we're going to behave. And so most people just react without pausing and thinking about the reaction. And their reactions are based on their paradigms, right? Their reactions are a lot of the times like reflexive, and it's because of their paradigms. But we do, as human beings, and having the gift of self-awareness, we have that ability to just for a moment stop and make a choice about how we're going to react. And so understanding what recognizing, knowing what a paradigm is, knowing what your lens has been when you are presented with stimulus, and then before you respond, you can consciously think about it. How do I feel like reacting? And then recognize that's my old paradigm. That's this lens that I've been perceiving everything through. Instead, take a step back and say, let me change this lens. Let me find a better way to react. Does that make sense? And there's self-awareness, imagination, conscious, and independent will. We have all of those, right? We have all of that ability. So that gives us, and we're the only ones in the animal kingdom that can do that. That can, all other animals react. And they react based on paradigms, but they don't have self-awareness, right? So they can't take a step back and pause and think and recognize that they're about to react. It's instinctual for animals, right? It's instinctual because it's ingrained paradigms, but they don't have self-awareness, so they can't take a step back and think about and choose. They don't have a choice. They just react. We do. We have a choice. And we can say, I'm about to react to this particular stimulus through with my old paradigm, through seeing it through this lens that I've carried around with me for ever. Or wait a minute, let me change this lens out. Let me try to attack this or approach this. Let me respond to this stimulus in another manner. Okay? So, Bradley Benner, Mindset Mastery Week 5 Paradigms. Don't know what I'm going to have on deck for next week, but do me a favor, if you like this video, like it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, and lastly, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I probably should have opened with this, but go to bradleybenner.com, and there's a button there underneath or right on that page that will take you over to a Google form where you can ask me some questions about mindset stuff. It's not about marketing, guys. This is strictly about mindset stuff, but you're free to ask me any questions. Again, that's at bradleybenner.com. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next week for Mindset Mastery Week 6.